North Yorkshire's calm hills and ancient towns hide chilling tales. From haunted halls and castles to lonely waterfalls, these 10 places carry whispers of tragedy and restless spirits. Beningbrough Hall, set on gentle lawns beside the slow River Ouse. Beningbrough Hall first rose in the early 18th century, a Georgian mansion of warm red brick and elegant symmetry. Yet behind the gracious facade and the fragrance of its walled gardens, visitors speak of something colder lingering in the corridors. For more than 200 years, the house has been linked to one of the most poignant tragedies in North Yorkshire's haunted lore. Local tradition tells how Giles and Margaret Earl, fearing political reprisals for their outspoken sympathy with the American struggle for independence, once hurried home in secret. Only their trusted housekeeper Marion remained on duty. In nervous haste, they asked her to hide the family's valuables with the gamekeeper, a man named Martin, certain that soldiers might soon descend to seize their estate. The next day, their steward Philip Lorry returned from visiting a sick relative and demanded to know where the treasure had been hidden. Marion refused. Stung by suspicion and greed, Lorry conspired with a poacher named Vasey. One bleak evening, Marion was struck down and her body pushed into the black waters of the Ouse. The stolen goods eluded them, and before long, justice closed in. Vasey swung from the gallows in York, while Lorry, dismissed by a wary Mrs. Earl, chose a more desperate end and took his own life. Yet the violence did not fade with their deaths. From that time onward, soft sighing and faint wailing have drifted through the house after dusk. Door handles turn when no one stands near. Guests and staff alike have glimpsed a white-clad figure gliding along the upper passages or rising silently from the riverbank, her face hidden by moonlight and mist. Some say Marion's sorrow calls out in those sounds, a gentle but unquiet plea for the injustice done to her. Others speak of cold spots that appear and vanish like a breath, or of an invisible presence that seems to follow on the great staircase. Whether one believes or not, few can walk Beningbrough's echoing galleries without feeling the weight of her story. By day, the hall remains a picture of Georgian grace. By night, it belongs to memory and to a spirit that will not be forgotten. St. Mary's Church. Set amid quiet lanes and old stone walls, St. Mary's Church at Saxton carries a stillness that is both beautiful and unnerving. The church dates back to Norman times and stands close to the historic battlefield of Towton, where one of the bloodiest conflicts of the Wars of the Roses raged in the 15th century. Its weathered tower and ancient graveyard tell of centuries of devotion and loss. Yet, as dusk settles and the wind curls through leaning headstones, something stranger than history seems to stir. For generations, local people have spoken of a mysterious light that fills the church long after dark. Walkers on the B12-117 have seen the windows suddenly blaze with the soft, trembling glow of candlelight, though the doors are locked and no services are taking place. Some describe the light as golden, as though from many beeswax tapers, while others claim it flickers with a bluish hue, more like a phantom flame. Yet when caretakers hurry to investigate, they find only deep silence and darkness within. No smell of smoke, no melted wax, not even the faint warmth of a recent fire remains. Legends differ on what this ghostly illumination signifies. Some say it is a sign of eternal prayer, the spirits of long-dead monks or priests keeping vigil over a sacred place. Others believe it recalls the desperate prayers of soldiers and villagers who once took shelter here during battle, their final hopes etched into the stones. There are tales, too, of wedding parties lost in storm or plague, their joy forever frozen in a spectral celebration of light. Eyewitnesses often speak of a hush that falls over the churchyard when the glow appears, a quiet so deep it seems to mute even the rustling trees. Dogs refuse to enter, and those who linger too long report a sudden drop in temperature, as if a cold hand had brushed the soul. Whether these lights are echoes of devotion, grief from a violent past, or something less easily named St. Mary's Church, remains a place where faith and mystery intertwine. By day, it stands serene. By night, it sometimes burns with an unearthly radiance that no living flame can explain. The Parsonage Hotel and Spa. In the quiet village of Escrick, a short drive south of York, stands the Parsonage Hotel and Spa, a gracious 19th century house surrounded by clipped lawns and mature trees. By daylight, it exudes calm elegance, a popular retreat for weddings and spa breaks. Yet when the corridors fall silent and the last guests retire, the atmosphere often shifts into something far stranger and far colder. For decades, staff have whispered about a peculiar apparition known simply as the half-man. This figure, described as the top half of a man floating at normal height, is seen only from the waist up, as if the rest of his body belongs to another world. He is almost always encountered by male guests and night staff who tell of fleeting yet vivid meetings. Some glimpse a well-dressed gentleman drifting across a landing, his coat and shoulders solid and clear, while his lower half dissolves into air. Others awake in their rooms to feel a presence close by, opening their eyes to find a torso standing at the bedside, before fading like mist. Long-serving employees recount nights when heavy footsteps echoed down empty hallways, doors creaked open in rooms locked for months, or keys rattled on their hooks with no breath of wind. A bartender finishing late once heard a deep sigh behind him, turned quickly, and found only the polished wood of the deserted bar. Security cameras have occasionally flickered or switched off entirely at the very moment the unseen visitor is said to appear. No definitive story explains this phantom. Some suggest he may be the lingering spirit of a Victorian clergyman who once occupied the rectory that stood here before the hotel, his soul caught between earthly duties and the next life. Others believe he might be a traveller who met an untimely end on the nearby coaching road and now returns in fractured form. Whatever his origin, the half-man of the Parsonage Hotel continues to unsettle those who meet him. Guests checking in for a restful spa weekend seldom expect to share their room with a figure that has no legs and leaves no shadow. Yet in this tranquil corner of North Yorkshire, the boundary between comfort and the uncanny can vanish with the closing of a door. Ripley Castle. North of Harrogate, behind stone gates and ancient deer parks, rises Ripley Castle, a stately home with more than 7 centuries of history. Its turrets and lakeside paths speak of romance and heritage, but when the sun falls behind the Yorkshire dales, the castle reveals a darker heart. Generations of residents and visitors have told of persistent chilling hauntings that make Ripley one of the county's most mysterious landmarks. The most frequently encountered presence is that of a wandering nun. Dressed in a dark habit, she is said to move quietly through the corridors at night, knocking gently on guest doors. Witnesses describe the soft, deliberate tap and a sense of expectancy, as if she waits for an invitation to enter. Those brave enough to call out receive no answer. When they open the door, the passage stands empty and silent. Some believe she is linked to a priest, once hidden here during the era of Catholic persecution, perhaps still seeking solace or confession. Another spirit known to the castle's staff is the so-called smoking man. He appears in the Great Hall as a shadowy figure carrying the distinct aroma of tobacco long after smoking has been banned indoors. Equally unnerving is the phantom identified as Lady Alicia Ingleby, a 19th century matriarch. Guests have felt their bedclothes tugged or even whisked entirely away in rooms thought to have been hers. Doors bang without warning, and one witness saw only the lower half of a female figure gliding effortlessly through two closed doors, an image that remains etched in memory. The castle's connection to the English Civil War adds further depth to these legends. Soldiers who fought and died on the grounds are said to march still, their booted steps echoing faintly across stone courtyards. A priest hole, once a desperate refuge for Catholic clergy like Father Francis Ingleby, is rumored to hold his anguished spirit, especially when the air turns damp and cold. Visitors today may marvel at Ripley's art and architecture, but after dark, the castle becomes a theatre of whispers and sudden chills. Whether these encounters are memories embedded in ancient stone or true spirits at unrest, Ripley Castle remains a place where history and haunting walk side by side, leaving every creak of the floorboards heavy with possibility. St. William's College, tucked just behind the soaring minster in the heart of York, stands St. William's College, a striking timber-framed building from the 15th century. By day, its crooked beams and leaded windows tell of centuries of civic and clerical life. But when the crowds leave and the night air deepens, the college seems to slip quietly back into older shadows where certain presences have never quite departed. The most frequently seen figure is an elderly woman wrapped in a long shawl. She is often spotted sitting serenely on the front step, smiling faintly at passers-by, before fading like breath on glass. No one knows her name or story, but those who meet her speak of an oddly calming sadness, as though she waits for someone who never returns. Inside, footsteps echo in an upstairs chamber, long after it has been locked for the night. These steady, pacing steps are linked to a dark tale from the building's past. Local tradition recalls that two brothers once lodged here with a fellow clerk. In a quarrel over money or betrayal, the elder murdered the clerk and cunningly framed his younger sibling for the crime. Consumed by guilt, the surviving brother is said to have haunted that upper room in life, pacing back and forth in endless remorse, and to continue the same lonely circuit in death. Modern visitors sometimes hear the floorboards creak as if under an invisible tread, or glimpse a shadow pass swiftly across the leaded windows. On more than one occasion, a staff member has entered the room to find the air unnaturally cold and a faint scent of candle wax despite no candles being lit. There are also reports of a crouching figure glimpsed beside an exhibit, vanishing the moment it is approached, as though reliving a final act of despair. Though centuries of renovation have softened St. William's College into a cherished landmark, the spirits bound to its timbers appear undisturbed. To step inside after dusk is to feel history tighten its grip. Each echo in the corridor might be the elder brother walking his eternal punishment, while the gentle smile of the shawled woman hints at a grief too deep to leave behind. Fountains Abbey, hidden in a sheltered valley near Ripon, the monumental ruins of Fountains Abbey rise like a cathedral carved from time itself. Founded in the 12th century by Cistercian monks and dissolved under Henry VIII, the abbey now stands roofless and magnificent, its arches framing open sky. Yet when dusk settles and the last birds fall silent, visitors say the stones remember their sacred purpose and the dead return to sing. For centuries, locals have spoken of mysterious chanting that begins as the sun sinks behind the hills. the sound drifts through the air in deep measured waves, as if an unseen choir is still performing evening prayers. Those who linger near the chapel of the 9 altars often hear it most vividly, the harmonies rising and falling until quite suddenly they cease. No living voice is ever found, and the great arches remain empty. Photographs taken at twilight sometimes show a strange mist curling like incense around the broken pillars. One striking image captured what looked like a swirling, smoke-like figure near the old high altar. Guides speak of visitors who pause mid-sentence, claiming they feel a gentle tug on their sleeve or a sudden drop in temperature, as though a passing monk brushed silently past. Others describe a faint odor of candle wax or the cool echo of footsteps following them across the grassy floor. Legends suggest these sounds and shapes are the monks themselves, bound by devotion to their ancient rituals. Some say the spirits mourn the abbey's violent suppression and continue their prayers in defiance of time. A few link the activity to Abbot Hubie, whose great architectural projects ended abruptly with the dissolution, his restless energy still pacing the nave. Whether these encounters are echoes of medieval worship or something more mysterious, the effect is unforgettable. Standing beneath the vast Gothic arches with moonlight spilling through empty windows, one feels both awe and unease. Fountains Abbey by day is a masterpiece of ruined beauty. By night, it becomes a living memory where ghostly chants weave through stone and silence, and the past refuses to fade. Captain Cook Memorial Museum. Close to Whitby's busy harbour, in a narrow lane that once echoed with the bustle of sailors, stands the 17th century house where young James Cook lived and trained as an apprentice. Today, it serves as the Captain Cook Memorial Museum, preserving relics of his great voyages. Yet alongside the charts and maritime treasures, lingers an atmosphere less easily explained, for this seafaring home is said to host spirits of its own. Visitors and staff have long reported the presence of a little girl thought to be 8 or 10 years old and the daughter of a sailor. She is often glimpsed near the attic or on the old staircase, dressed in simple clothes of another age, her small figure watching silently before slipping away. Some hear the faint patter of her feet or the soft murmur of a child's voice singing to herself. Despite careful searches, no earthly child is ever found. Another frequently mentioned spirit is Mary, a former housekeeper whose devotion to the family may have outlived her own life. Guides describe sudden scents of baking bread or wood polish in rooms long unused, as though she still tends her duties. Doors sometimes close gently, as if on a draught, yet the air is perfectly still. On quiet afternoons, a chair may rock once and settle, or a cupboard door stands open that had been securely latched. A night watchman once spoke of hearing a low sob near the old kitchen hearth. When he turned, a fleeting female figure seemed to stoop beside the fireplace, then vanished into the very stone. Some suggest Mary watches over the wandering child, or perhaps both spirits are bound together by the longing for loved ones lost at sea. Whitby is a town steeped in maritime legend, but few places blend history and haunting as intimately as this house. By day, it recounts the bold adventures of Captain Cook. By night, it seems to keep vigil for those who waited for sailors who never returned. The gentle footsteps and whispered songs remind every visitor that courage and loss have always sailed side by side. Nunnington Hall, tucked amid quiet gardens along the River Rye, Nunnington Hall, is a graceful 17th century manor with warm stone walls and mellow Georgian interiors. Yet as evening deepens and the last visitors drift away, a different atmosphere steals through its rooms. The hall has earned a quiet fame for ghostly sounds and fleeting apparitions that seem woven into its very timbers. The most frequently recounted tale centers on a troubled stepmother whose harshness toward her stepson turned to lifelong remorse. Local tradition holds that she doted upon her own child from a later marriage while treating the boy from her husband's first union with cold indifference. One day, the neglected child ran away, and while the house rejoiced at his escape, the stepmother's natural son grew anxious and slipped out to find his half-brother. Peering from a high window in search of the runaway, he leaned too far and plunged to his death on the stones below. The stepmother's mind never recovered from the shock, and she was said to wander the hall in anguish, searching for a son she could never reach again. Today, many visitors and staff report sounds that seem to echo this grief. Light but deliberate footsteps ascend the main staircase when the house is empty, often followed by the soft rustling of skirts. A door to an upper chamber sometimes opens slowly and shuts again, as if someone peers out to scan the garden. Others have heard faint weeping or the click of a latch that no hand has touched. On moonlit nights, a woman in old-fashioned dress is said to be visible from the lawns, gazing out of an upstairs window with a mixture of longing and despair. In the gardens, a solitary female figure occasionally drifts among the hedges, vanishing when approached. Whether these manifestations are a tormented mother searching endlessly for her child, or memories impressed on the ancient oak and plaster Nunnington Hall, holds a hush that deepens after sunset. Its handsome rooms remain elegant by day, but when twilight falls, they become a stage for footsteps that will not cease, and a sorrow that even centuries of quiet cannot heal. Spofforth Castle. Amid rolling meadows near Harrogate lie the gaunt ruins of Spofforth Castle, once the powerful seat of the Percy family. Broken towers and ivy-clad walls stand against the sky like dark sentinels of history. By daylight, the site is serene, but as dusk draws across the fields, the old stones seem to gather a chill of their own, and local tradition insists that something spectral lingers at the top of the keep. The most striking legend speaks of a ghostly woman who appears as a bluish-white figure near the upper battlements. Witnesses describe her as no more than a half-body, a luminous upper torso clothed in faintly glowing garments. She is often seen leaning outward from the tower's rim as though searching for someone, and then in a heart-stopping instant, she topples silently into the void. Those who rush forward find nothing below but empty grass and shadow. Some historians link this apparition to a tragic love story from the castle's medieval heyday. One tale recalls a young noblewoman who defied her family's wishes by loving a commoner. When her secret was discovered, she was locked in a high chamber until she agreed to renounce him. Rather than surrender, she leapt to her death. Others speculate she may have been an unwelcome bride, forced into a political marriage, or even a prisoner who met a violent end during the Wars of the Roses. Modern visitors sometimes report more than just a vision. Several have felt sudden icy gusts that whirl upward from the tower stairs on still summer evenings. Cameras occasionally malfunction when pointed at the parapet, and one late-walking couple swore they heard a faint gasp overhead just before the apparition appeared. Even after careful searches, no physical explanation has been found. Whether she is the restless spirit of a noblewoman who chose freedom over obedience, or an echo of centuries-old violence, the blue-white phantom of Spofforth Castle endures. Standing beneath the dark outline of its broken walls at twilight, one cannot escape the sense that the final desperate plunge of a forgotten life continues to replay again and again in the fading light. Hardraw Scar, hidden in the rugged dales. Hardraw Scar is home to England's highest single-drop waterfall, a dramatic curtain of water plunging into a stone amphitheatre. In daylight, the scene feels almost otherworldly, a cathedral of rock and mist. Yet when the weather turns wild and the wind howls through the gorge, a darker story stirs in the roar of the falls. For centuries, locals have whispered of three spirits doomed to wander here, their voices carried on every storm. The legend dates back to the turbulent days of Henry VIII. On a stormy night, three men drinking at a nearby inn allowed ale and anger to cloud their judgment. Harsh words escalated into violence, and when they stepped outside beneath the lashing rain, one man struck a fatal blow. Instead of remorse, greed and fear took over. The two survivors quarreled bitterly over the crime, and before dawn, one killed the other. The lone remaining man eventually confessed, but died not long after, leaving all three bound to the place where their friendship collapsed into murder. Today, when gales sweep down the gorge, visitors often speak of sounds beyond the crash of falling water. Sharp cries seem to rise and fall, with the wind mingling with low moans that echo off the limestone walls. Hikers caught here at dusk describe sudden gusts that feel almost purposeful, as if unseen figures brush past in haste. On rare occasions, a fleeting silhouette appears at the edge of the waterfall, a human form, poised as if to leap, only to dissolve in the spray. The natural setting adds to the eerie power of these tales. In stormy weather, mist churns and the river boils, creating ghostly shapes in the air. Even skeptics admit that Hardraw Scar has a peculiar energy when tempests rage, as if the ancient quarrel still reverberates through the gorge. Whether these voices are restless souls seeking forgiveness or simply the wild music of water and stone, Hardraw Scar keeps its secrets well. To stand there on a storm-tossed night is to feel history's violence written in wind and thunder, and to sense that the past has not entirely let go. North Yorkshire's haunted halls and wild landscapes still breathe with centuries of mystery. Share your ghostly thoughts in the comments and subscribe to Creepy Experience for more chilling journeys through Britain's haunted past.